Hello everyone, I am BBD.
And I am Chris VanMeter.
Indeed, and we are... Wait, you're not...
I am CVM.
Okay, he's CVM, yeah. Not Chris VanMeter, I don't know who that is,
Yeah,
but...
nobody does.
Yeah, I know a Charles VanMeter, but that's all I know. But yeah, we are here for a deck tech for the video that we are playing today, and this is the black-green mid-range deck. Josh Utter-Layton and I think a few others played this at the World Championship. And I think it's a pretty interesting deck. It's definitely new. It's like basically a new spin on Jund. Now that you have access to Scavenging Ooze, they basically felt that you just didn't need the third color anymore.
Yeah, like before red was for Blood-Bright Elf, which we can't play anymore, and Lightning Bolt, and I mean, just play Dismember instead of Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, just play Dismember instead. It's basically the same thing, and yeah, now you have access to like some of the other sweet cards. Who needs Blood-Bright Elf when you have like a better Blood-Bright Elf? Garruk Relentless, just the best four mana card ever. So
I do like Garruk a lot in the deck. It is just another resilient threat against the control decks. They have to spend time and resources killing it. If not, it'll just take over the game. Plus, it acts as removal against like all the Malera decks. Like you can just like kill their creatures. They're all X2s, so
right. Yeah, I mean it's just removal against a lot of decks actually. A lot of decks have creatures like Scavenging Ooze or maybe Dark Confidant or perhaps even Deathrite Shaman. Are a lot of creatures that decks tend to play. So Garruk can definitely fight those guys. So.
Yep.
But yeah, overall, I think this deck is definitely interesting. It plays a lot of the same cards that you see from traditional Jund decks. Like it has the Inquisitions, the Thoughtseizes, full playset of Liliana, one of the best cards in Modern. Maelstrom Pulse and Abrupt Decay. I liked one of the advantages of playing Jund was you got access to cards like Terminate, which I think are generally a little bit better than Abrupt Decay. But Abrupt Decay does give you so much mileage against random artifacts or enchantments, for example, Cranial Plating.
Oh man, who's playing that?
Yeah, I don't know. Speaking of mileage against Affinity, Deathmark's probably going to give me a lot of mileage. Pretty much unable to kill anything in his deck with Deathmark. But
to be fair, you can discard it to Liliana, so it's not 100% dead.
True.
You have that 1% utility.
There's also the 0.01% utility of you're at 3 life, I have a 2/2 Scavenging Ooze, I rip a Tarmogoyf off the top, get to play it, Deathmark it, and then eat it with Scavenging Ooze for the last point.
I hope that happens.
I really hope it does too.
I actually do.
Yeah. All in all, this deck's pretty sweet looking, and hopefully it plays out awesome. Another advantage to playing 2 colors is you get to have a little edgier mana base, I guess you could say.
Definitely. We have the Tectonic Edge, and then you get to play with some monkeys.
Yeah.
Treetop Village has been a powerful card since it was ever printed. People stopped playing it because of Raging Ravine is just normally better than Treetop Village is going to be. But since we are just 2 colors, it lets us play the more mana-efficient, aggressive land.
I'm actually going to disagree with you, and I actually think Treetop Village is better than Raging Ravine, but the reason that Raging Ravine was played was just because of the dual land nature of it, being able to produce both colors. But I actually think that Treetop Village is more powerful because it's rare that you're winning a game because Raging Ravine is growing. Usually it's just the fact that it's hitting for at all
amount of damage
is what's winning you the game. And Treetop's just cheaper at doing that. You can hold open your Deathrite Shaman and hit with a Treetop Village. Whereas with Ravine, you'd have to use it to exile a land to even activate the Ravine in the first place.
I mean, some people are just greedy, I guess.
Yeah. And I also get to play 1 Twilight Mire, which is probably one of my least favorite lands of all time. I just actually hate the filter lands. I expect to open on many hands that are 2 Tectonic Edges and a Twilight Mire that I will be unable to keep, but hopefully it works out, but I've had bad experiences in the past with those.
It's definitely one of the risks that you run with it. Decks that played them in the past have even gone so far as to play the off-color tri-lands from Shards of Alara, so they don't run into those problems. The old black-white tokens deck would play Arcane Sanctum, so that it didn't just get stuck with a billion Twilight Mires or a billion Fetid Heaths and no way to turn them on or whatever. So sometimes just playing a land that's a bad dual land is good enough just because it's a dual land.
Right. Yeah, definitely. But anyway, this is the main deck for this black-green mid-range deck, I guess is the official name for it. So
Yeah, I
pretty
mean,
innovative there.
I
but
guess
yeah.
it's close to like the Rock.
Yeah.
Would be a name for people, but I think it should just be the Deathmark Special.
Yeah, I like the Deathmark Special. Like, yeah, I definitely think if Dwayne Johnson were playing Magic, he would probably be playing this deck. So.
Probably.
All right. Well, let's talk about the sideboard.
Yep.
So, all right, we are back to discuss the board of siding for this deck.
Definitely.
Gonna jump right in with little known facts. Actually, my favorite Magic card of all time, Phyrexian Arena.
I thought you were gonna say Deathmark.
Nope. It's actually yeah.
Oh man.
That's like number 3, number 4, yeah. But,
I like Phyrexian Arena a lot as well. It's one of my favorite cards to draft in Cube. I played it a lot when it was legal and standard. I mean, the card is just extremely powerful. And I'm surprised that it's not seen more play in Modern, to be honest.
yeah, I definitely agree. Like a lot of Modern games are kind of grindy. There's a lot of very grindy matchups. All the Deathrite mirrors and things like that. That it seems like a card like a turn 2 Phyrexian Arena would just be backbreaking against a lot of decks.
Yeah.
And I mean, if Dark Confidant's good enough, like Arena's probably good enough as well because Confidant dies to literally everything. Like
except Deathmark.
he doesn't die to Deathmark, that's true. But I guess the question is, what does die to Deathmark? 'Cause apparently it's nothing, but no. We'll get to that one in a bit. 4 Fulminator Mages, I think, is pretty key. Like Tron, like preys on decks like this. Tron just preys on any deck that can't really interact with Karns or things like that very well. So having access to 4 Fulminator Mages to go along with the 4 Tectonic Edges, probably gives this deck a bit of an edge in the matchup.
I definitely agree. It seems like it's just very good against the Tron decks. It's like you said, they do prey against these matchups. But also, like, Blue-White-Red is going to kill you with Celestial Colonnade. And so having additional ways to kill Celestial Colonnades can't be bad. So.
Yep. As I found out while binning a Jace, you can't Abrupt Decay a Celestial Colonnade, so...
Oops.
Yep. Lesson learned. We have Infest. Infest is just a very good card against, like, a number of strategies. You know, for example, Affinity.
Yeah.
Being able to actually kill Etched Champion is pretty big game. So, definitely a card that you want access to some sort of like a sweeper type effect, especially in a deck like this. And then Wrench Mind, probably also really good against Affinity, right?
I mean, you have to get rid of the extra Mox Opals somehow.
Yeah.
What better way than making your opponent discard a card while we're at it?
Yeah. Pay 2 mana, discard the worst card in your hand.
Yeah, I definitely see Wrench Mind being awesome against like the Blue-White-Red decks. But just that's really about it as far as what I would.
Yeah, it's like an almost Hymn to Torek against a lot of decks that don't have artifacts, where you can kind of supplement your Thoughtseize and Inquisitions with just another way to kind of hit their hand.
Yeah.
And against those kinds of decks, you just want to set up a situation where you know, hit a couple of discard spells into like a Liliana or a Garruk Relentless, and then hopefully you've like cleared the way, and they just don't have an answer to that card anymore, and you can just beat them from that point. Thrawn is just also for the Blue-White-Red matchups. I've found personally that Blue-White-Red's kind of a tough matchup for these kinds of decks. They have so much removal for your creatures, and as long as they can like find a way to deal with your Planeswalkers and stuff, you're gonna have a hard time winning. But Thrun really changes the dynamic because most of those decks are playing cards like Supreme Verdict instead of Wrath of God, just to deal with like, you know, for like the Geist decks that have a lot of counters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You want Supreme Verdict to ensure you can kill those Geists. And having Thrun, a lot of decks actually just can't beat the card. Like, they have no way to remove it. So Shadow of Doubt is primarily for Birthing Pod, but there's actually a lot of matchups where you can get like incidental value out of it. Like Tron, you can Shadow of Doubt them in response to them cracking like an Expedition map and just like shut off their ability to get their land or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value for Shadow of Doubt. And I've played this deck actually a lot in the Blue-Red Wafo Tapo list, and it is pretty sweet there, and I imagine it's the same here. By virtue of being a hybrid card, you can actually cast it in a black-green deck. So.
At the very least, it cycles.
Yeah.
And it's also good against Scape Shift. Like, Scape Shift is another deck that showed up at the World Championship. There's always going to be people that like to play the Scape Shift decks. And even though we do have a lot of discard, I still feel like, you know, this deck isn't extremely well positioned against the Scape Shift decks.
Right.
But Shadow of Doubt is just very good against them.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And then last we have Deathmark.
Yes.
which actually is, despite the comments earlier, it actually is a very good card. It kills a lot of the creatures played, primarily Deathrite Shaman. Having a 1-mana answer to Deathrite Shaman is pretty important.
Absolutely.
So that's like the primary purpose for a card like Deathmark, but it's also going to kill Knight of the Reliquaries, Tarmogoyfs, like Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, Scavenging Ooze is going to be a big player.
It's going to be a big player. Yeah, and having a 1-mana answer to Ooze, even if it's grown pretty big, is pretty clutch. So Deathmark's pretty awesome decision for them to play Deathmark. I actually really like that a lot. So.
And it also kills Baneslayer Angel, which is another card that is seen, a splattering of play in Modern, just for 1 mana in addition to our Deathmarks, or to the Dismembers.
And I also want to note that it also kills a Squire too.
It does.
If they happen to play a Squire, which is Modern legal, it does kill it. So
if you ever needed an answer to a Squire, you could always just not worry about it because it's never going to do anything.
Wow, man, that's just harsh. So. But
if you cast Squire against me, I'll make sure that I have a Deathmark for it.
Okay, all right. Well, deal. My Tarmogoyf on turn 2 will 100% be a Squire. So.
100%.
But yeah, this is the black-green rock deck, mid-range deck, and I think it's pretty sweet. So I'm excited to see it in action.
Absolutely.
Yep.